Howdy y'all, and welcome to this surprise episode of 10-Minute Minis featuring a custom 3D printed Urbanmech that I done gone and converted up for an upcoming Solaris 7 match. This rotund little 30-tonner has been heavily modified for the ancient 1991 game set and digitally kit bashed to be a contender in MechWarrior gladiatorial spectacle. Its little engine has been upsized to the extreme and the big gun ripped out and replaced with a mirrored array of small pulse lasers intended to overwhelm its lightweight opponents with volleys of accurate laser fire. I'm confident in its ability to perform well in the combat circuit as well as here at the painting desk, where we're going to take advantage of the Spoopy season and give this little round body a suitably gourd-flavored theming. Our little jacked up Urbanmech is going to become jack-o'-lanternified, and we're going to do it with only 4 hours left until Halloween. As at the time of recording now, the clock reads 8:40 p.m. on October the 30th, and that mech is still sitting on my desk with only a primer coat, drying out before we can move on to the next layers. That said, and a quick and important aside here, today's model, save for the custom parts, has been sculpted by Locust Labs, and if you want one in your own collection, consider picking up the chassis over on Cults 3D or My Mini Factory, or even heading over to show some support on Patreon. All the relevant links are listed down below in the description. Anyhow, we're planning on doing up a speed paint treatment on this model, so whatever the finalized approach, we need to start out with a black primer coat. In this case, I've decided to showcase some methods available to those on a limited budget or for folks who ain't got an airbrush. As you can see, I've ripped out one side of an Amazon box to serve as my spray backing, and I'm using Rustoleum 2X flat black primer as suggested by Mr. Wylock over on Wylock's Armory. This paint is usually pretty dirt cheap at your local hardware store, and it's currently listed for less than $7 a can over on Amazon if you need to have it shipped directly. I've added an affiliate link in the description down below if you want to pick that up, while also kicking a few cents down towards the channel without any extra cost to yourself. Anyhow, on the theory regarding black primer, since we're going for a quick and dirty paint job on a serious time crunch, the black will serve to hide any crimes or missed spots by keeping some super dark colors in the crevices, serving as shadows if we ever fail to get total coverage. I think I'd usually go for a solid white prime and painting an orange model to maximize the brightness given that it's got really poor coverage. But since we're covered in blue spines and gotta go fast in our bright red running shoes, the black will just give us that extra bit of insurance to avoid an appearance of shoddy work. Anyhow, again, we're gonna dig in and do up some zenithal priming over the top of this little lad with a second can of Rustoleum 2X flat white primer. With these two colors in your collection, you too can zenithal... that ain't right. What the heck? It looks like to me that this can done sat on me shelf for so long that the paint's real separated out and don't want to get carried well by the propellant. I've left this footage here for y'all to see a potential pitfall for an inexperienced painter. Whenever you pick up the can and give it the initial shake, if that mixing ball ain't floating around freely inside, you're going to want to ensure that you take some time to really shake that can up. I mean it. Shake the ever-living shit out of that can until the ball moves around without much resistance. You'll feel a gradual change in the consistency as you move it around. I've cut out a lot of the off-screen shaking here to save as much time as possible in this shot, but by the end of it you can tell that it's still not quite mixed up right. Good enough for my last-minute project, but not really good enough for anything requiring more care. TLDR here is to doubly ensure that your cans are in working shape by giving them that hard up and down action until they flow smooth. Digressing, we're going to take advantage of the zenithal here, even though it's all speckled up, by the use of some transparent paints that'll pick up the variation in primer tonality. Today, it's going to be in the form of some contrast paints, first Griffhound Orange and then Warp Lighted. We'll get that little round pot-bellied body turned pumpkin-like with our orange and nestle it into surrounding vegetative limbs with the subsequent green. Just slap that stuff all over the model and let it dry out fully before moving on to the next step. Once it's had time to fully dry, and I mean completely bone dry without any errant moisture, we'll shade it down further by blasting its every surface with some Agrax Earthshade, adding some warmth into the shadows. Since this mech is sporting a paint job based on organics, it'll do to boost the color temperature up just a bit over the cold black of the initial primer. Besides, the initial black coat was laid down just in case we ended up missing spots in our rush to get this thing done last minute rather than to establish our overall palette temperature. Next up, we just gotta dig in hard on some dry brushing, serving to build up the highlight colors of our model with speed and efficiency. As always, I'm unloading my poofed out tier 2 brush onto my texture palette instead of paper towel to prevent the pigment from drying out too much. This will help us to maintain a nice color on the work instead of ending up with an unsightly chalky finish. To get the best results, we want to keep the inherent moisture in the paint rather than pull it out in super absorbent materials like brown paper or white paper or paper towels or cardboard, which is also just paper. So I guess what I'm saying is don't rub it on paper, instead rub it on your texture palette. Still, that's not to say we want a wet brush, as we're dry brushing here, but we do want a bit of moistness in our tool as we get to work. Of course at that, I gotta take a second here and ramble out in the weeds a bit, as is tradition around here. I hear that some people find the word moist to be uncomfortable to hear. I never understood why moist could be considered so lewd. Imagine a world in which we had none of the great moist things, like moist muffins, moist towelettes, moist soil, moist eyes, moist turkey, moist gloves, moist tongues, moist hair, moist gym mats, moist socks, moist vagina, moist roast beef, moist crackers, moist talcum powder, moist pillows, moist kittens. I could go on and on. But I digress. I just don't get what the hang-up is and why anybody would have such an aversion to that word. Moist. Where the hell was I? Looks to me like we just finished up all the metallics on the model and now we're moving on into another round of slapping down some of my most favoriteest ink wash, NULN oil. I know I say it over and over and over and at least once every other episode around here, but it's such a good and greasy color that really goes a long way in making your true metallics truly pop on the model. It adds a bit of depth and heavy machineness by way of its color tone as well as its wick in action. Once we apply this shade, we're ready to start detailing up our happy little pumpkin man and making him into a proper jack-o'-lantern. As with any freehand detail on any of my projects, we're going to first start with a black silhouette of the work that's to come, kept just a fraction of a millimeter larger than the intended final results. This black line will be really subtle in the end, but it'll lift a ton of weight by providing that little bit of needed contrast to make the freehand just pop off the surface. It's almost counterintuitive to do this, but at the scale we're working in, sometimes your eyes just need a tiny bit of help to register the details. Digressing, we'll build up the yellow mouth of our happy face in a few layers, going through sunset orange into deep yellow and on into a 50-50 mix with white as the final highlight. Though this is a super bright detail, that aforementioned black lined outline around the thing will help the yellow stand out from the orange backdrop, a foreshadow doing wonders to elevate the perception of the tiny freehand. It's right about now though, as we head on into the sponge chipping, that I bet y'all are wondering a bit about that clock ticking away up in the uppermost right hand corner of this here video. Is he gonna manage to finish the thing? Is he gonna just speed through and gloss over all the fun little finalizing details? Well, I'll just have to answer your questions both no and no. You see, as I was trying to do this thing without touching the airbrush to make it approachable to anybody out there, I managed to ruin the whole model by applying Winsor & Newton Galleria gloss varnish in too heavy-handed a fashion, globbing up and completely ruining the model. I tried like hell to save it by washing off the offending goop under the sink faucet, but only managed to completely fucking destroy all the previous details as well. Given that I've been at this thing all night and it's now 4:52 in the morning as I edit this on October 31st trying to get out a Halloween video on Halloween, we'll just have to take an L and call it done there. Something, it's all about the journey, not the destination, and yada yada. Still, it was actually hella fun to try and push myself to do this kind of seat of the pants kind of experience, and I hope you also had fun along the way. Even with the failure, let's go ahead and take a moment and regard the work with a grand reveal. I really don't know what y'all were expecting. Obviously, I failed to film the damn thing before the paint got rubbed off. Still, I ain't gonna leave you hanging, and I'll go ahead and give you a happy little jack-o'-lantern Urbanmech anyways. Happy Halloween, y'all.
Thanks for watching. Come back again for more. Happy Halloweener.